parcel of land in Chicago on the lake the size of the Loop. It is the 440-acre former site of the U.S. Steel Southworks. It's on the southeast side of the city and has been empty since 1992. Now there is a new buyer with big plans. Here to tell us more are 10th Ward Alderman Susan Sadlowski-Garza, 7th Ward Alderman Greg Mitchell. The Southworks site is in both of their wards. Also with us is Ryan Orey. He's the Chicago Tribune columnist covering commercial real estate. And we want to hear what you think. What would you like to see in the Southworks development? Any concerns about the project? Tweet us your thoughts at WTTW using the hashtag Chicago Tonight, and welcome all of you to Chicago Tonight. Alderman Sadlowski-Garza, your father was a steel worker and union activist. What was U.S. Steel Southworks like when you were a child?
Well, Southworks was the economic engine that drove the southeast side. I mean, it had 23,000 workers. It wasn't just a place where people went to work. It put bread and butter on people's table, and there was Christmas parties and get-togethers and open houses, and everybody knew somebody that worked in the mill.
And Alderman Mitchell, it's a very vibrant picture that Alderman Sadlowski-Garza paints.
Mm-hmm.
What is your hope for what could be happening there now or in the future?
My hope is that it would be an extension of the existing neighborhood of South Chicago, and that whatever development and investments that are made would actually add value to the existing community. You know, I grew up in the neighborhood, so my father used to drive in the neighborhood, and I remember how things used to be. And I'm looking at this potential development as a catalyst that's going to kind of return things and add value to bring it back to the way it used to be.
Ryan Orey, what is known about the developer?
Well, they're relative unknown. The two firms that are involved are relatively unknown in the United States. They've done these types of projects overseas. They're Emerald Living, based in Dublin, Ireland, in Barcelona, Housing Systems in Spain, and they both have a background of renewable energy and sort of like reusing materials and building with environmentally friendly materials.
Do they have good reputations in what they've done in the past?
You know, I'm not that familiar with them. I've just done some research on some of the things they've done and what their kind of the system that what system they use, which is these kind of modular pieces that they put together. But again, they're kind of an unknown here. They haven't done a project in Chicago or in this country.
Alderman Sadlowski-Garza, details are vague, and there have been some preliminary drawings that have been put out, and they're very preliminary. We understand that things could change quite a bit. But what is known about the plan so far? What have you been told?
Well, some of the renderings that we've seen are, consist of low-rise structures. I know that the plan is evolving as we speak. There's going to be single-family homes, a lot of green space, wind turbines on the existing break wall, a lot of green solar power energy. There is going to be a manufacturing plant on the south side of the land where they're going to be building the modular homes. So it's going to be built right there and then pushed onto the property.
Alderman Mitchell, in terms of what you've been told the project would look like eventually, granted the fact that it's still a process that's a design that's evolving, but what have you been told?
So in several of the meetings that I've had with the group, we talked about the structure being developed in phases. And the first phase could potentially be the retail that would add the amenities that the neighborhood is lacking at this point. And then from there, we would like to see that talk about how the housing would be structured. We want to have opportunities to take advantage of those lakefront views, but we want to make sure that the investments in the development is going to be an asset to the existing community. From me and my conversations with them, we want it to be an extension of the community. We don't want it to be one side, the Emerald City, and the other side, what it looks like now. Right. We want it to be an extension, and I'm going to continue to work with them through the due diligence period, because I want to make sure and find out what they find and see if this is actually going to come to fruition. And once once that's there, we're going to continue on with those plans to ensure the inclusion of the community, to ensure that once development does start, you know, we actually do put those assets that will benefit the community, as well as provide jobs and have the contractors in there. So I'm looking forward to this whole thing just evolving.
And how about the issue of jobs? What is your understanding? Have any assurances been made to you?
Well, you know, I agree with Alderman Mitchell. We have to make sure that the south side, the southeast side is not left out. The people that have been there their whole lives, they have to be given priority. That's the first and foremost important thing to us. Alderman Mitchell and I have talked about that over and over again. And this is, if they build 20,000 homes, that could potentially be 50,000 people, and that's on the low side. So we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure, the hospitals, the schools, you know, the churches, the firehouses. You know, there's so many other things that come with this.
You're basically building just
Another city.
Another city.
It's going to be another city within a city, absolutely. So, and we have to make sure that the people that have been there their whole lives aren't left out of the process.
Exactly.
And one thing about Barcelona and Emerald is they have committed to us to make sure that they go back to our constituents to make sure that they have a say in the process. So, you know, that's something that's very important to both of us.
And how does that work? For example, would it be a memorandum of understanding? Would it be a binding agreement? How would that work? Ryan, what are you hearing?
Well, I mean, I think the aldermen are the ones going to be overseeing that process.
What are the different models, though, conceivably, in terms of guaranteeing that what is promised actually comes to fruition?
Well, I mean, typically these large developments like this go through a set of public meetings, and the aldermen and other groups will have them walk through their specific plans, and then eventually, if the alderman likes your plan, they'll move it forward to the rest of the you know, through the rest of the process with the city to getting approval. And if the aldermen don't, or in this case 2 aldermen don't like it, then you know, you're probably back to the drawing board.
Sticking with going back to the drawing board, there was another effort to develop this land. What happened to that?
Well, so U.S. Steel still owns the site, is in the process of selling it. And in a previous attempt, they partnered up with a.
And this is the old plan that we're looking at.
Yep. And so that U.S. Steel partnered with a Chicago developer, McCaffrey Interests, and they've done a lot of large, complicated projects before. They spent 12 years trying to get the project off the ground, and they parted ways a year or so ago without ever having executed the plan that they had envisioned. And they were very ambitious. They were calling for more than 17 million square feet of commercial space. I think 12 or 13,000 residences, a large marina, and you know, the great thing about this site is it's this huge site you can do so many things with, and it's also the downfall of it is doing these enormous projects are difficult to pull off. And
Well, it's a blank slate.
It is a blank slate, but what makes you think that, what gives you, do you have hope that this time it's really going to work?
Well, all we have is hope, right? And I'm hopefully optimistic.
And what makes you optimistic?
Well, this is the first time that I think we've ever gotten this far in the process, number one. And we walked the site with the developers. We were there. I saw their face when they saw this property for the first time, and it was almost like, you know, Cesar Ramirez was like a kid in the candy store. He fell in love with it. I felt his passion. For me, these are hallowed grounds. My dad worked there. He was president of the Steelworkers, Local 63. My husband worked there. He tended the blast furnaces. My father-in-law. There's a legacy there, and people gave their blood, sweat, and tears, and sometimes their lives to that property. You know, we don't want somebody that's just going to come in and forget what was there. This is an important piece of Chicago, and like Alderman Mitchell said, this can be a catalyst that can project the rest of this neighborhood forward.
In terms of, and we'll have to close down this, Alderman Mitchell, but the funding, whether or not this will actually come to fruition in terms of resources, what gives you hope?
Well, as we progress in the process, we would start to see, as well as the city, what the price tag is going to look like. You know, this next 5 months of the due diligence period is going to yield some results that is going to either either add to that price tag or keep it steady. So as we progress, we're gonna see how much this is going to cost. I have not seen an actual budget for this. I don't think you have either.
No.
We haven't seen the actual budget. So these are the things we're going to be paying attention to as we proceed.
And we will be paying attention as this project proceeds as well. Alderman Sadlowski-Garza, Alderman Mitchell, Ryan Ori, thank you for being here.
Can I make one quick statement?
Very quick.
Okay, so September 2nd and 3rd, we're going to be having a festival on the lake at 87th at Steelworkers Park. We're going to be celebrating what's happening at Steelworkers Park with Friends of Labor and the 2 aldermen.
That's where we'll have to leave it. And you can get a closer look at those preliminary plans on our website.